Welcome to the Team Teach podcast. I'm Clare, and in each episode you'll find me talking with an expert guest to learn more about behaviour. We squeeze a lot into each episode. You'll listen to the latest thinking in behaviour, continue your professional development with our book recommendation, and then I'll send you away with 3 practical tips you can use in your setting. I'm joined today by Michael Follett, and we're talking about great play and the impact on behaviour and well-being in schools. Michael,
hi, Claire.
Hi. Would you mind starting off telling the listener a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Well, yeah. Usually when I do my talks, I say, my name is Michael and I'm a former child, just to get that out in the open, because I grew up in a nursery school and I grew up around playing children. And my background is I came into contact with the profession of playwork while I was doing my education degree at York. And I just thought it was the best profession ever, of a profession that specialises in what do children need from their play and how do we as adults provide it for them. I went on to actually be head of play in 2 local authorities, so Bath and North East Somerset, for 5 years, and then I was head of play embedded in the school improvement team at South Gloucestershire Council. And that's where I came up with the idea, from talking to a lot of head teachers, that we could do better with play in schools. That really good heads, fantastic schools, fantastic academic performance, and they all said to me, our playtimes are so difficult. Why is that? You know, we're just having difficulty. Our children are nice, our teachers are great, but our playtimes are lousy. So I was very fortunate. I worked with a group of 6 really go-ahead, innovative head teachers. And we started to mull over the idea of why was it that schools weren't good at playtimes. And one of the things that we discovered was play is 20% of a child's life at primary school. It is 1.4 years of their time in school. And yet almost every school has no plan at all.
Yeah.
They have no policy to inform what they're doing. They have no idea of what is the appropriate training for their staff.
Yeah.
They don't know what play is or how to make it better. So that was a real revelation, really. And that was the seeds of what is now called the OPAL programme. I developed it within the local authority. And by the time I left, there was a 18-month waiting list of schools trying to get onto it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
2011 came along, and I was out on my own. I thought either I go back into teaching, which I could do, or I take this little seed of something and see if it works, if it's not just me. So I established OPAL as a community interest company, a not-for-profit. And that year I did 11 schools. Every school was hard work to get. At that time, you really had to convince people that play was an important part of child development. I mean, it sounds crazy, you know, for professionals that spend their lives dealing with children. Of course, play is going to be important to them, but it was a struggle to get through that first year. Anyway, then one of my colleagues who I'd got to know when I was on the board of Play England, which I was on the board for 6 years, Neil Coleman, joined me, and we got a few more schools to do come along. And then another colleague from Play England, Ingrid, lives up in the northeast. She came along. This year I've just trained mentors 40 to 44. So we have 44 mentors in the UK, 1 in Malaysia and 1 just starting in Ithaca, New York. We worked out every year we have 66 million play impacts on children's lives. And that we've actually had an impact on 1.6 million children. And by that, we mean that's for 190 days a year, they have better play. So it seems to be working. We seem to have tapped into something that isn't going away. It's just growing, the understanding. I think COVID finally made us think about children's mental health as a real thing.
Yeah.
And also the crisis movement, the movement in crisis. I mean, as in
Mhm.
there is a crisis in lack of movement in children's lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
That their sedentary behaviours is just not something that we can ignore anymore.
Yeah. It's really interesting the kind of the time frame that you've talked about there, because also thinking about the explosion of learning outside the classroom, forest schools, like all of
Mm.
that actually is kind of parallel in that time frame of actually people being like, oh, like this movement thing, learning in a different way is a thing, and
It is. I
development.
think
Yeah.
one of the things that COVID taught us is that screen experience is not the same as primary experience.
Yeah.
That in the early years of your life, you need massive amounts of primary data about the
Mm.
world. And for so long, we thought that that could happen on a screen.
Mm.
And now we realize it can't. You know, children need to be talking to real children and picking up real stones and real sticks and touching real mud and rolling in real grass. Uh, and whether it's forest school or OPAL playtimes, what we're doing is just tapping into the absolutely fundamental needs of childhood.
Mm. Yeah. I just wondered, I think you maybe have touched upon it. We like to ask a bit of a reflective question, sort of what you wish you knew then that you know now about the topic.
Especially related to behavior,
Mm.
that often people see playtimes in schools as it's the fault of the children because their behavior is not good and therefore it's their fault.
Mm.
And I think if we flip it round and say, what are we getting wrong as adults? What are they communicating to us with their behavior? And what they're telling us is you are rubbish as adults at understanding what we need. Because honestly, when we complete the program and at the other end of it, we come out achieving our goal, which is every single child in the schools we work with should have an outstanding playtime every single day with no exceptions. Almost all the behavior problems disappear.
Yeah.
I've honestly had head teachers say to me they've gone from 2 hours a day sorting out problems to zero. And they just walk around the playground, enjoying themselves, watching children do what children do best. Um, so the thing I did get wrong, and I
Mm.
spent 4 years doing it, was I did train almost every single lunchtime supervisor in Bath and North East Somerset in playground games because I skipped the bit
Mm.
where I spent 4 years doing everything wrong. Uh, the only thing I discovered about that period is that lunchtime supervisors are not in charge of primary schools. Uh,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
you know,
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
if you want to create
It's not a game
lasting,
changer.
if you want to create lasting cultural change in a primary school, don't start with the people on minimum wage, minimum training, and who sometimes aren't even allowed in the staff room.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, start with the policymakers really and the head
Yeah.
teachers. So
Make
yeah, I did spend. It took
mm.
me a long time. Also, playground games aren't really play because once the adult directs the child, it stops being play and it starts being work.
Okay. Yes, could you say more about the it's framed as great play through Opal, but I
Yeah,
wondered if you could define that because even your distinction there when it's adult led, it becomes work, not play. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah.
yeah. I think it was really good for me because the three random areas of my career that I had not planned at all were having a great understanding of play work, and I drove a double-decker play bus around North Yorkshire, which
Oh,
I can't
nice.
believe I got paid to do, but I did. I was an early years teacher, and then I was in policy and strategy and school improvement,
Mhm.
and that gave me the framework to understand how you create cultural change in a school. But at the heart of it, really, was my play work experience.
Mm.
So in play work, we define play as freely chosen by the child, directed by the child, and motivated by the child. And what that means is in the ideal circumstances, the child is choosing who they play with, what they play with, how they play, and the adult keeps back as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So in OPAL, we what we really talk about is creating the ideal conditions in which play can flourish and happen. And those are the cultural conditions, which is everybody's mindset and what policies are informing what the adults do, taking the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child seriously, especially Article 31, which is the human right to play,
Mm-hmm.
and then translating that into practical planning for schools. What are we going to do next week that will make play better? What are we going to do next term? What are we going to do next year? And what are we going to keep doing as a cycle of evaluation and improvement?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still working with two of those original six head teachers
Mm-hmm.
that set up the OPAL program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They are in a very elite group that we call OPAL Honours. So we have an award scheme, silver, gold, and platinum, and you have to do really well on our program to get a platinum. So our honours schools are our triple platinum schools.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a little handful that have had outstanding play for more than a generation of children in their schools. So nobody can remember, certainly from the children, a time when the play wasn't amazing. And that has profound effects across the whole school. Not just on break times. It seeps into everything about the school.
Did you know that you can become a trainer and deliver Team Teach training to staff within your own organisation? Have the flexibility to choose when, where and who you deliver your training to throughout the year. Find out more about this cost-effective option on the Team Teach website.
So I'm wondering, with that, the impact that having that great play in those schools, that the impact on kind of well-being and behaviour, and how that seeps through and the kind of links with that.
I think a lot of play is not nice play. Children are instinctively driven to play, and if we give them a playtime and we don't give them the proper cultural and environmental conditions for play, their play will come out as pushing and fighting and challenging each other and challenging us, or we have this whole joke about what we call casualty play. This is where one girl gets a tiny scrape of her finger and six of them go in to report it, and then you get the blue towels, and this is just
It's classic.
this is just finding entertainment. And
bored.
yeah, they're bored. And if we come at it from understanding that every single child, I don't care whether they're special needs, whether they're autistic, whether they're a boy, they're a girl, every single child has an innate ability to be an amazing player. And we're just letting them down. We're not giving them the trust, the belief, the conditions for their play to flourish. And out of the 2,000 schools we've worked with, every single school that has committed seriously to doing the program has had success. We've worked with schools that have less yard space than would be legal in a prison. We've worked with schools that have so much space they have no idea what to do with it. But it doesn't really matter, because if you commit to making the play in that school as good as it can possibly be, then actually that's always good enough. And one of our fantastic head teachers at an OPAL school was interviewed on Good Morning Britain the other day, because it was the publication of the State of Play, which is the Play Commission's interim report. And so poor old Damien was up there at 7 o'clock in the morning, in the dark, in the pouring rain, talking about the fact that his school is a sunken prison yard of a space. And they're an honour school. That they've been providing outstanding play for their children for about 7 years.
And it makes such a difference. I'm privileged to work in a special needs school, a school for autistic children, secondary age. But
Yeah.
I think with the values and the kind of culture of the school, that play is at the forefront of many things that we do. Child-led. Got like a little playground area outside, a bit refereed by some members of staff, just to make sure that it's all safe and okay. But I guess I'm wondering with that. I mean, I've done my fair share of refereeing out on the playground in my service, but how do we balance that idea of kind of great play, free play, but safe play as well? Because that can be tricky.
I would say risk and safety is one of the biggest issues that come up. We kind of have a line in OPAL that the two barriers to play are hurty and dirty.
Mm.
And people really worry about risk.
Mm.
And they're really surprised when we tell them that one of our best friends in OPAL are the health and safety executive, because the guidance that they have around play is fantastic. And they talk about how every child should have risk in their play, and that
Yeah.
we have two duties of care to children. We have the one we know about, which is the duty of care to protect, but that is equally balanced by the duty of care to provide. And that we must take both of those things in equal consideration when we're making judgments about risk. So when we talk about risk removal in play environments, we also say, well, that is equally balanced by benefit removal. That for everything you're removing, you're also removing all of those benefits. So we have a very, very thorough process for helping schools create the right policy, the right frameworks, the right monitoring. We don't talk about safe play because we point out that nothing is safe.
Yeah.
And it's very well researched that the single most dangerous point of a child's day is the journey to school,
Mm-hmm.
and the journey home again. The level of risk involved in the kind of play that they'll be doing in the playground is minuscule compared to the risks of getting to school and back again. So I think people just want reassurance, really,
Yeah. Yeah.
that they're not going to be sued, that parents aren't going to be chasing after them. And that's all comes down to fear is not a policy, that fear is not the place where we should be basing our policy in.
Mm-hmm.
We should be basing our policy on, do we think play is important in children's development? Do we think that play is important for the way they're socialized, for their mental health? Do we think play is important as a human right or not? If we take our decision making from that point, rather than only a point of fear, we're much more likely to end up with sensible decision making about risk.
And is that one of the barriers that you kind of come across from staff teams, head teachers, policymakers, that there's a worry with play that it's going to be too risky, and that worry, that fear kind of outweighs knowing that it will have benefit? Is it, or are there more barriers, or is
Everybody's scared. Everybody's scared of everybody else. The lunchtime supervisors are scared that they'll get in trouble if somebody gets hurt.
Yeah.
The teachers are scared that they'll, if they're on duty. The head teacher is scared of the local authority and the parents. This culture of fear that informs decision making should be based partly on understanding the benefit. And also we can do a reverse risk assessment, which I have to credit my colleague Julie Mountain on doing. So what are children missing out of? And why might they be at more risk if we deny them the opportunity ever to be exposed to graduated experience of risk that they are able to assess?
Mm-hmm.
There was a really interesting study, I think it was Make Space for Girls came up with it, and found that when the quality of adventurous outdoor space was improved in a London borough, that teenage pregnancies went down. Because when was it that girls were first encountering serious risk and having to make those judgments? They should have been making those judgments all the way through their primary experience on appropriate risk. And instead, we think that we're protecting them, and then we're chucking them out into the big wide world of secondary with none of the graduated level of experience of identifying risk and mitigating and managing risk, which they should have been able to build up.
Yeah, through I guess through those play experiences and taking those risks, in during play. How do you kind of go about getting people on board with this? Because, like I said, there might be some barriers, or I mean, I I go to quite a few services, mainstream primaries, and I've seen
Yeah.
some pretty disastrous playtimes in my time. Some pretty extraordinary things. But yeah,
There's two tracks that we can take with it.
yeah.
So with play, there's what we call the intrinsic benefits of play,
Mm,
and those are, it's good, makes children happy, makes them smile.
yeah.
It makes them fitter, increases their bone density. Jacqueline Harding, in her book, The Playful Brain, points out that it's the only activity that lights up every single part of the brain. Those are all intrinsic
Mm-hmm.
value of play. That's not always the track that we take when we're selling it to schools. We might talk about the instrumental benefits.
Mm.
So what does it mean for a senior leader? On average, we've found that it's 10 minutes more teaching time per teacher per day.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's a benefit.
Yeah.
As a senior leader, we could say 2 to 5 hours of your time you will get back, because that's time you won't spend unpicking all of the frustrations and anger that children are bringing to you, because we're not meeting a fundamental need. It's a need of the species, and when you don't meet a species' fundamental needs, they will become angry, they'll become frustrated, they will take it out on the people around them. So yeah, we can sell it. And just what I said about the 1.4 years, what sensible strategic leader would not plan for 20% of what their establishment delivered? That's bonkers to me. In fact, we have a national campaign called the Plan for Play, which is just to say to Ofsted, can you please just ask schools for their plan for play? We're not
Yeah.
saying what should be in
Yeah.
it, but we're saying, what on earth are you doing not planning for 20% of your entire delivery and having a workforce that has no suitable training, no evaluation framework, no idea of what excellence is? It just seems very bizarre to me that we would take the most problematic part of the day and have no strategic approach to it.
Yeah, I think when you put it like that, it's like, oh, that is such a big chunk of the day, and it doesn't really make sense. But I think maybe there's just this sense of like, oh, we'll just let the kids will get on with it. But
Yeah,
as
imagine if we took that approach to literacy or maths, which are the other two
yeah,
areas, that
yeah.
20%. Your literacy levels are terrible. What are you going to do about it? It's kind of, well, I guess we just see if it gets better next year. We really can't think of what to do about it. But maybe if we go out and get some Spot and Biff books, that'll sort it out. It's the equivalent of putting a trim trail in. Just go out and buy a set of Spot and Biff books, and I'm sure it'll sort itself out.
It is, but also as like I was saying about refereeing and things, there is actually of not facilitating play, but actually, like you were saying, like allowing it to be child-led, being intuitive, some of the refereeing bits.
Playwork is a
There's
highly
not,
skilled profession,
yeah,
and nobody in schools is trained in it. In fact, to the extent where I got so fed up with it that OPAL has sponsored the development of an NVQ level 2 and 3 in playwork in schools, which we'll be rolling out next year,
yeah, great, yeah,
because we think that, well, the cost of supervising lunchtimes in the UK is £750 million. And actually, it's the cost of supervising them really badly.
yeah,
It's not any individual's fault, but it's not informed by any professionalism. It's not
yeah.
reviewed. It's not managed. It's not resourced. Um, so yeah, having a having a professional approach to what is the role of the adult in the play environment is not something that happens accidentally ever, any more than improving safeguarding would happen
Yeah.
accidentally.
Michael, it's been absolutely fascinating, and I've probably got lots of things I probably am not going to necessarily say on the episode about it, but I wondered if you could end the episode with 3 top tips for me.
3 top tips. Well, one I've alluded to already, that is, have a plan.
Yeah, plan.
It is 20% of your school. Whether you come to OPAL or you don't come to an OPAL, have a plan for how you are going to take your play from where it is to being at least good enough, but if not excellent. I think the second one is believe in the competence of children, because ultimately play is about agency. It's giving the child agency to be their own person. One of the descriptions of play that we use to simplify is play is what I do when everybody else stops telling me what to do. When does that actually happen in a child's life? When does anybody ever stop children telling them what to do and how to be? And we know that if you trust children and believe they are competent, they will become more competent. And if you treat them like incompetents, what do you know? They become more incompetent. And the other is just go and visit a place that has fantastic play and just feel the joy, because that's what it feels like. There is just a sense of happiness and joy, and you remember why you went into the profession in the first place when you're walking around a playground that is full of happy children who are singing and dancing and drawing on the floor and building mud pies and building dens and doing child things. It's infectious. So yeah, just rekindle that joy that you had while you went into the profession, and go and see a school that's amazing at play, and you think, oh my God, why isn't everybody doing this?
It brings out the play in us as adults as well, and I love it in my school. I'm always playing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it plays infectious.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Michael, today, and I hopefully will catch up with you soon.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. It's been lovely.
You've been listening to the Team Teach podcast. It's been great to have you here with us as we discuss behaviour, communication, and the ways we can best support those in our care. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.